Success has a funny way of exposing the uncomfortable truths about a roster that losing often masks. When you're winning games, when you're sitting near the top of the conference standings, when everything looks perfect from the outside, that's precisely when the toughest organizational decisions become crystal clear. I'm talking about the kind of roster evaluation that separates championship teams from pretenders, the type of strategic thinking that requires looking beyond tonight's box score to see what this team needs 3 months from now when everything is on the line. Welcome to Lakers News Fan Report. I'm your host, and this is where you get the real story behind every Lakers move before it happens. If you're watching this channel, it's because you understand that being a Lakers fan means more than celebrating wins and complaining about losses. Here you're getting updated news, verified information, and strategic analysis about our beloved Lakers that goes deeper than what you'll find anywhere else. Today, I need to walk you through something that's developing at the Lakers practice facility right now, something that involves a player who entered this season with massive expectations, something that could represent one of the most significant roster decisions this organization makes before the February deadline, and something that reveals exactly how J.J. Redick and this front office are thinking about building a championship contender. This isn't about panic. This isn't about overreacting to a small sample size. This is about honest evaluation and difficult decisions that winning organizations have to make even when things are going well. Let me start by establishing where we are as a team right now, because context matters enormously before we dive into specific roster decisions. The Los Angeles Lakers are 14-4, sitting second in the Western Conference, playing some of the most complete basketball we've seen from this organization in years. LeBron James is defying age and expectation. Anthony Davis is healthy and dominant, and the supporting cast is contributing in ways that have Lakers fans genuinely excited about championship possibilities. J.J. Redick has implemented a system that maximizes our strengths. The ball movement is crisp, the defensive rotations are sound, and there's a cohesiveness to this team that feels different from recent seasons. By every measurable metric, this is a team that's executing at a high level and deserves to be mentioned among the Western Conference elite. So when I tell you that there's a significant roster conversation happening right now, when I tell you that changes could be coming despite our success, I need you to understand that this isn't about fixing what's broken. This is about elite organizations constantly evaluating whether they have the optimal roster construction to win when it matters most. Now, before I get into the specifics of who we're talking about and what might be developing, I want you to think about what makes a player valuable in the NBA. It's not just about talent. It's not just about what a guy did last season or what his reputation suggests he should be able to do. Value in the NBA is about what you're actually producing right now, about whether your skill set aligns with what your team needs in their specific system, about whether you're making the players around you better when you're on the floor. And sometimes, through no fault of their own, a player who has all the talent in the world simply doesn't fit what a team is trying to accomplish. That doesn't make them a bad player, doesn't mean they won't succeed elsewhere, but it does mean that difficult decisions need to be made about roster spots and playing time and long-term fit. Let me take you back to training camp, because understanding how we got to this point requires knowing what the expectations were just a few months ago. There was a player on this Lakers roster who entered camp in the best health he'd experienced in a long time, a player who had dealt with injuries that limited his availability and effectiveness over previous seasons, a player who finally had the opportunity to show what he could do when fully healthy. Throughout the preseason, this player's defensive performance was earning praise from J.J. Redick, the kind of public validation from a head coach that signals a player is going to have a significant role in the rotation. Lakers fans were excited. Analysts were projecting this player as a key piece of the puzzle, and there was genuine optimism that we'd found another defensive weapon to pair with Anthony Davis and anchor our identity on that end of the floor. But here's the reality of the NBA that every fan needs to understand. Preseason performance and regular season impact are two completely different things. What works against second-unit players in October doesn't always translate against starting lineups in December. And sometimes a player who looked like a perfect fit on paper simply doesn't produce at the level required when the games actually matter. This isn't about effort, this isn't about character, this is simply about production and fit, and whether a player is helping you win games at the level you need them to. And over the course of the first 20 games of this season, it's become increasingly clear that one of the players we expected to be a rotation mainstay simply hasn't delivered the impact we needed. I'm talking about Vanderbilt, and I need you to stay with me because what's happening with his situation reveals everything about how this Lakers organization is thinking about roster construction and championship building. Vanderbilt has appeared in just 14 games this season, and the numbers tell a story that's impossible to ignore. He's averaging 4.6 points, 5.6 rebounds, and 1 steal per game while shooting 44% from the field. Now, on the surface, those rebounding numbers aren't terrible for a guy playing limited minutes, and his defensive reputation suggests he should be contributing more than the stats indicate. But here's the critical context that changes everything about how we evaluate his performance. Vanderbilt has missed 4 consecutive games recently, and his minutes have been declining steadily even when he's been available. That's not a coincidence. That's not injury management. That's a coaching staff sending a clear message about where a player stands in the rotation. J.J. Redick is one of the most analytically driven coaches in the NBA, someone who makes decisions based on what the data tells him about lineup effectiveness and individual impact. And when a coach who praised a player throughout the preseason starts reducing that player's minutes and eventually removing him from the rotation entirely, that tells you everything you need to know about what's happening behind the scenes. The Lakers are winning games, the rotation is working, and the players who are getting minutes are producing at levels that justify their playing time. Vanderbilt, through no intentional fault of his own, simply isn't impacting winning at the level required to earn minutes on a team with championship aspirations. That's not a personal judgment, that's a basketball reality, and it's creating a situation where the Lakers need to seriously evaluate whether keeping Vanderbilt on this roster makes strategic sense. Now here's where this gets really interesting from a front office perspective, and here's why Lakers fans need to be paying close attention to how this situation develops. Vanderbilt is making $11.5 million this season and has 3 more years remaining on his contract. In the NBA's current economic landscape, that's one of the toughest contracts to move in the entire league. You're not talking about an expiring deal where a team takes on salary for half a season and moves on. You're talking about a multi-year commitment to a player who, despite his defensive reputation and athleticism, has a limited offensive skill set and an injury history that makes teams cautious about betting on his long-term availability. Trading Vanderbilt isn't as simple as calling up another team and swapping players. It's going to require packaging additional assets, sweetening the deal with young players or draft picks, and finding a team that believes they can unlock value that the Lakers haven't been able to access. Let me walk you through what potential trade scenarios might look like, because understanding the mechanics of how Vanderbilt could be moved helps clarify whether the Lakers should actually pull the trigger on any deal. The first scenario involves the Orlando Magic, a team that's built their identity around elite defense and could theoretically value Vanderbilt's defensive versatility. In this potential framework, the Lakers would package Vanderbilt with Dalton Knecht and a 2032 second-round pick in exchange for Jonathan Isaac. For the Magic, they'd be getting a backup wing defender in Vanderbilt, but the real value would be Knecht's shooting ability and the future draft capital. For the Lakers, acquiring Isaac would bring exactly what we need, a defensive presence in the paint who averages 1.3 blocks per game over his career and can protect the rim when Anthony Davis needs a breather or gets into foul trouble. The second scenario involves the Indiana Pacers, who are struggling at the start of this season and might be willing to shake up their rotation. In this framework, the Lakers would again package Vanderbilt and Knecht along with a second-round pick, but this time in exchange for Obi Toppin. This trade would be more challenging to execute because Toppin has established himself as a valuable rotation piece for Indiana, averaging 14 points and 6.7 rebounds while shooting 41.7% from the field. But if the Pacers decide they need to make changes, Toppin represents exactly the kind of athletic forward who could thrive in the Lakers' system. He's an elite rim runner. He's developed as a wing defender, and while his three-point shooting has regressed this season to just 17.6%, there's enough evidence from previous years to suggest he could return to form in a better situation. Toppin would give the Lakers another dynamic scoring option and a player who can finish above the rim in transition, exactly what this offense needs when LeBron and AD are creating opportunities. The third and perhaps most intriguing scenario involves the Sacramento Kings, a team that's reportedly open to discussing almost everyone on their roster except Nick Clifford and Keegan Murray. Sacramento is in turmoil right now, and when teams reach that point where they're willing to blow things up, that's when interesting opportunities emerge for contenders. In this framework, the Lakers would package Vanderbilt, Knecht, and rookie Adu Thiro, along with a second-round pick in exchange for Malik Monk. Now, this trade hits different for Lakers fans because Monk was beloved during his time in Los Angeles, and bringing him back would be a homecoming that fans would absolutely embrace. Monk is averaging 12.7 points, 1.7 rebounds, and 1.9 assists per game while shooting 44.9% from the field and an impressive 41.6% from three-point range. That perimeter shooting is exactly what the Lakers need, especially in playoff situations where defenses collapse on LeBron and AD. Monk's ability to score in bunches, to create his own shot when the offense stagnates, and to provide instant offense off the bench would be invaluable for a championship run. But here's the critical question that every Lakers fan needs to be asking right now, and here's where the strategic thinking becomes essential. Should the Lakers actually trade Jared Vanderbilt? And the honest answer is more complicated than a simple yes or no. On one hand, Vanderbilt isn't producing at a level that justifies his salary or roster spot on a team with championship aspirations. He's fallen out of the rotation entirely. His offensive limitations make him unplayable in certain matchups, and his injury history creates uncertainty about his long-term reliability. From that perspective, trading him makes sense if it brings back a player who better addresses the Lakers' needs, whether that's rim protection from Isaac, athletic scoring from Toppin, or perimeter shooting from Monk. Each of those players would give the Lakers something they desperately need for a championship run. But on the other hand, and this is where the counterargument becomes compelling, the Lakers are 14-4 and sitting second in the Western Conference. This team is winning with the current roster construction, the chemistry is excellent, and the rotation is producing results. Is this really the moment to make significant roster changes that could disrupt what's working? There's a legitimate argument that the Lakers should ride out this season with the current group, see how far they can go, and reevaluate in the offseason when there's no risk of disrupting a winning formula. And let's not forget that Vanderbilt, despite his current struggles, does possess legitimate NBA skills. His defensive versatility, his ability to guard multiple positions, his rebounding instincts, these are valuable traits that could become more important in playoff matchups against specific opponents. Maybe the move is to keep him through the season as insurance, as a player who might not be in the regular rotation, but could be crucial in a specific playoff series. Let me also address the financial reality of trading Vanderbilt, because this matters when evaluating whether any deal makes sense. Each of the proposed trades requires the Lakers to give up additional assets beyond just Vanderbilt. Connect is a talented young shooter who has shown flashes of becoming a valuable rotation player. Thiero is a raw prospect with elite two-way potential. Draft picks, even second-rounders, have value in this league. So the question becomes, is upgrading from Vanderbilt to Isaac, Toppin, or Monkworth giving up those additional assets? Would those upgrades actually move the needle enough to justify the cost, or would the Lakers be better served keeping their young players and draft capital, continuing to develop internally and maintaining roster flexibility for future moves? Here's my personal take on this situation, and I want to be completely transparent about where I'm coming from as someone who wants nothing but championships for this organization. I believe that trading Vanderbilt only makes sense if the return genuinely addresses a critical need that's preventing the Lakers from winning a championship. If acquiring Jonathan Isaac gives us the rim protection that becomes the difference in a playoff series against Denver or Phoenix, then yes, that trade makes sense. If bringing back Malik Monk provides the reliable perimeter shooting that we desperately need in crunch time, then yes, that's worth considering. But if we're trading Vanderbilt just to trade him, just to move on from a contract that isn't working out, without getting back a player who genuinely improves our championship odds, then I'd rather keep him and the additional assets we'd have to include. The other factor that I think is being undervalued in these discussions is the timing of when you make roster moves. We're not even at Christmas yet. We're barely a quarter of the way through the season, and the Lakers are exceeding expectations. The trade deadline isn't until February, which gives us 2 more months to evaluate this roster, to see if any needs become more urgent, to assess whether Vanderbilt might find a role in the rotation as the season progresses. There is no reason to rush into a trade right now just because Vanderbilt has fallen out of favor. Smart organizations are patient. They gather information. They wait for the right opportunity rather than forcing moves that might not be optimal. And right now, with this team winning and playing well, patience seems like the smart approach. I also want to talk about what Vanderbilt's situation tells us about J.J. Redick as a head coach, because I think this is revealing in positive ways that Lakers fans should appreciate. Redick is not afraid to make tough decisions based on performance rather than reputation or salary. He praised Vanderbilt in the preseason, gave him opportunities to prove himself in the regular season, and when the production didn't match what was needed, he adjusted the rotation accordingly. However, with the team sitting at 14-4 and playing excellent basketball, there's a strong argument for patience and not disrupting what's working. I'm optimistic about this Lakers team regardless of what happens with Vanderbilt, and I trust that our front office will make the right decision at the right time to maximize our championship odds. If you want the inside scoop on every Lakers roster move, if you want analysis that goes beyond surface-level takes, you need to subscribe to Lakers News Fan Report right now. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you never miss a breakdown, and share this video with other Lakers fans who want real insight into where this team is headed. This is where you get the truth about our Los Angeles Lakers, and I want you to be part of this community as we chase Banner 18 together. Let's go, Lakers!